sure you're going to be interested in this because with more perspective now, I want to bring in Michael Rothfeld. He is a Pulitzer Prize winning, his work helped to trigger this whole investigation. And so we're so glad to have him. He is also the author of The Fixers, The Bottom Feeders, Crooked Lawyers, Gossip Mongers, and Porn Stars Who Created the 45th President. We're so happy that you're here. Thank you for doing this because let's start with the counts, right? Sure. There are 34 of these counts of falsifying business records in the first degree. After working on this story for years, did you think that this day would ever come?
Actually, no, because the federal authorities were investigating this. They charged Michael Cohen. Donald Trump was president. He couldn't be charged. And then, after he left office, it did not seem like it was going to happen. And then Alvin Bragg resuscitated the case. So I didn't think it was going to happen.
And in the context that we have now, related to the invoices, relates to the checks that relates to the ledger entries, did you know specifically or have some idea where this might go?
Well, as my colleagues at the Times were reporting on what the grand jury was going to indict him for and what the DA was going to charge him with, we did know that it was going to be falsifying business records. And all of this scheme to repay Cohen and disguise the repayments for the Stormy Daniels payment as legal fees, that was known from the beginning. So
well, let's go to the hush money. There it is right there. 3 hush money cases in the Trump indictment, the Sarah McDougal. But this is the checks that you were referencing there. These are,
that's right.
This is the evidence here, right?
Right, and you can see that, Donald Trump signs these checks himself. I mean, his signature is illegible. Some of the checks were signed by other people. I believe Alan Weisselberg, his CFO, may have signed some of them, or Donald Trump Jr.
Right.
But some of these, Michael Cohen says, were signed when Trump was in the White House.
Yeah. There are people who are saying, well, even with this, the case isn't strong or what have you. Does that matter at this point? Because it does show that the former president was involved, that Weisselberg was involved, and there were others who were involved in this.
Yeah, I mean, falsifying business records is a pretty common charge in New York State, and clearly Michael Cohen did not perform legal fees. He paid Stormy Daniels off, and he was repaid with these sort of phony checks for legal fees. So that seems like a pretty straightforward case. The question is, to elevate this to a felony in New York State, you have to show that he had the intent to conceal another crime. And that crime, Alvin Bragg yesterday suggested it could be a state or federal election law violation, some kind of a tax charge. But he didn't specify that. And I think he just has to show that he had the intent to do that.
Let's talk about what's in the indictment, because the indictment does not name the alleged crimes Trump was trying to conceal. But Bragg, at his press conference, referred to violating state election law. Did this surprise you?
No, because, the state or federal election law, we don't really know exactly what might be said at the trial, but the whole purpose of this alleged scheme was to influence the 2016 election for Donald Trump and to silence these women, Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels. The indictment itself only deals with the Stormy Daniels repayment, but in this accompanying statement of facts, Alvin Bragg lays out this larger scheme of hush money payments to help Donald Trump during the 2016 election.
Yeah, and these are all the 3 people who were believed to be involved in that.
That's right.
We understand what happened with Stormy Daniels. That was the $130,000. This was $150,000.
Right.
But go on and explain some of this, because the doorman thing, people are a bit confused about that.
Right. Well, Trump is alleged to have conspired with David Pecker, who ran the National Enquirer, and the doorman, his name is Dino Sajudin. He came to the Enquirer with a story of Trump having a love child, which he apparently did not have. But in order to prevent the doorman, he used to work at Trump Tower, from talking about this during the election, the Enquirer paid him $30,000, and he had to remain quiet.
Yeah. Let me, just before we go, as you have been watching all the coverage and the analysis here, is there something that we're missing? People are saying it's not a strong case. I don't understand. They're not listing an underlying crime. Are we missing anything with this? What would you like to point out?
Again, just that this is a very common charge in New York State. Many people are charged with falsifying business records. And so what the DA has said is that, Donald Trump is no different than them. It's not really that unusual, except for the fact that he was the president of the United States and no former president has been charged before. But, that doesn't necessarily make him immune to prosecution.
Michael, thank you. I
Thanks,
appreciate you joining us. Michael
for having me.
Rothfeld.